Let's bring in Bob Costas. Bob, your thoughts on the second wild card?
Well, as I said before, the wild card giveth and the wild card taketh away. It's a simple matter of logic. Before there was a second wild card, the present system since the mid-'90s, there were years where you said, yeah, this is really good, because a wild card team was a team that caught fire, or maybe it was the second best team in the whole league, or it set up matchups people wanted to see, like Yankees, Red Sox, or there were no close divisional races and the wild card races were closer. But then there were other years, it's just a matter of logic, where the wild card undermined what should have been really dramatic and meaningful races for first place, in some cases rendering all but meaningless head-to-heads on the final weekend of the season between the two best teams in the league. Now, you add the second wild card. The best aspect of it is it puts a premium on finishing first. So you won't have any more Yankee-Red Sox series at the end of the year where Girardi or now Valentine are more concerned with lining up their pitching for the playoffs than in finishing first. There's a real penalty for being the wild card and a real advantage to finishing first. So the second wild card accomplishes that. But again, as a simple matter of logic, if this system was in place last year, the single most exciting night of regular season baseball in history would have been rendered meaningless because the Red Sox would have had the second wild card as the fallback. They wouldn't have been eliminated by Tampa Bay doing what it did. Atlanta wouldn't have been eliminated by the Cardinals' comeback. They would have fallen to the second wild card. So again, there will be years where this system seems like a godsend. And then there will be years where it messes everything up. And anyone who can't grasp that just, needs to go back to Logic 101.
But it sounds like you're not signing off on this.
I think it's better than what it replaced, except for the years when it isn't.
That sounds like a definitive answer. But why are we doing it now?
I think two reasons. I think Bud Selig finally came around to the idea that wild cards do often undermine the real meaning of a 162-game march to a pennant, and that there ought to be some kind of significant advantage to prevailing over 162. So this at least tilts it back in that direction. Plus, since it's going to be, as I understand it, a single-game knockout, not a best 2 out of 3, it might not be the fairest, but it is the most dramatic, and it creates additional product for television, something which they can sell somewhere else or add for additional cost to an existing package. And that single game, especially if it involves interesting teams, that single game might in some years get a higher rating than any postseason game other than a Game 5 in a best-of-5 or a Game 7 in a best-of-7.
I guess I thought that it might be attached to the fact that there is no salary cap, that you are saying to these maybe bottom feeders or sometimes bottom feeders, there's still hope for you. Then you don't have that yard sale after the All-Star break. You do keep the interest there instead of in Pittsburgh or Kansas City saying which one of these guys will be with the Yankees in a month.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and that's part of it. You give hope to a team like the Toronto Blue Jays, which is improving, but forever seems to be stuck in a division with two of the highest spenders, the Yankees and the Red Sox. Give them a chance to hope for something. And obviously, if a team is good enough to get into the playoffs, even as the second wild card, they're capable of winning a best-of-5. They're capable of winning a given best-of-7. That's the way baseball is. So you do spread the hope out a little bit further, no doubt.
He's Bob Costas. Costas tonight premieres on NBC Sports Network at 8 Eastern. Gary Bettman, David Stern, Floyd Mayweather. The interview's already taped, Bob?
Yeah, we taped the interviews on Tuesday, and it airs tonight, although I guess the press department thinks that the show is premiering, forgetting that we did the first one actually in Indianapolis on the Thursday night prior to the Super Bowl as a live town hall. But I guess they're making the distinction. This is the premiere from New York. The other one was the premiere on the road.
I think that
Next month will be the April premiere.
That was just a spec show that you did at the Super Bowl, just to see if they would have. That was your pilot, I think, is what it was.
They picked up the pilot. Like the call I got from Euchre a couple of years ago when Jim Powell, who was his partner with the Brewers, landed a job with the Braves, and I get a message from Euchre, Costas, we've got an opening. I'll push you if I can, but I'll need a tape.
The Ryan Braun situation. I don't know if you reached out to try to get Ryan Braun on the show after what has transpired, but what's left to be answered here that you think you could actually get an answer to?
I don't know how he would respond, regardless of whether you think about his guilt or if there's reasonable doubt about his guilt. It's obvious he's a very intelligent and well-spoken guy, so if he sat down for an interview, I think he would acquit himself pretty well. I don't know if he'd be willing to. The mistake I think he made was when he threw Lorenzi under the bus. I mean, you think about this. Yeah. Ryan Braun, is saying that my reputation has been besmirched. There's nothing I can do to fully restore my reputation. Some people will always doubt me. Well, what about Lorenzi? Is his reputation and his integrity less important just because he's not a famous ball player? They never contended, neither Braun, his representatives, the Players Association, never contended in the hearing that the samples had been tampered with. And when you think about the samples themselves, they are triple sealed, and the A sample was identical to the B sample. So if this was going to be tampered with, the guy would, A, have to be motivated enough to do Ryan Braun in, to commit a felony and face the possible penalties for that. He'd have to be skillful enough not just to contaminate the samples, but to contaminate the A and B sample exactly identically. Then he'd have to be able to unseal and then reseal all three seals without any of that having been detected. What is the likelihood of that? If I'm Ryan Braun, I say everything he said other than that. I say, look, I've passed every subsequent drug test. I took a drug test as soon as we were notified of the result of this one, and I passed that test. I say, as he did at the press conference very convincingly, my weight never changed, my power never changed, my speed never changed, all this stuff is measured. I have no idea how a false positive came out of this. But regardless, I am innocent, and regardless of whether you think I got off on a technicality or you think I'm truly innocent, this is the right result because I never knowingly put anything illegal into my body. If he says that, I think he's created enough reasonable doubt, and he's a likable enough guy that people say, at least with the passage of time, okay, cool. But when he brought Lorenzi into this, A, his statements aren't logical, and B, when you think about it, he's doing dirt to Lorenzi the same as he contends that baseball somehow has done dirt to him.
Well said. Well said. Before I let you go, Bobby Valentine is opening up the scrapbook here. And I know he's calculated, but I know he's crazy. If I'm a Red Sox fan, do I like what I'm hearing from Bobby Valentine by talking about something that happened 10 years ago or 8 years ago?
If they get out of the box with a strong April, you really like it. If they don't, you retrofit it and you say, no, I knew in spring training there was something wrong with this guy. That's just the way the talk shows are going to play out. Look, I love Bobby V. I know that he's not universally popular. I've always loved him. You know he's a great interview subject. He's a likable guy, wonderful to spend time with. I don't get these two particular pronouncements. I don't get the Veritek thing, and I especially don't get the Jeter flip thing. I just don't get it.
I don't either. But that's him. I don't know how long his shelf life is. There's an expiration date on him, but he's entertaining.
If they had hired, and I mean this respectfully because he's a great baseball man. If they hired Gene Lamont, what's the chance that he says something like this once in a decade? Bobby's going to say something like this once a week.
Crazy. Good luck with the show tonight, Bob. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, Dan. Take care.
All right, Bob.
Bye.
Costas tonight premieres on. Well, it's the March premiere on NBC Sports Network. That'll be coming up tonight at 8 Eastern.